to speak with you a little bit today and ask you about Memphis. So brought out two of her works that I thought were quite different from each other.
That.
I do too. It's incredible.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
come on down.
Yeah, I was her back door neighbor.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, she's on Woodside.
I knew that.
For
Is
a
it-
long time,
Mhm.
we rented a little house that was on the lane right near her.
Oh, wow.
So the way I got really acquainted with her is I had 3 small children,
Mhm.
and I was busy with the new baby,
Yeah.
and my 4-year-old disappeared on me.
Oh.
She thought she wanted to walk to the day nursery
Uh-huh.
and see the children at the day nursery, but she didn't have her direction right.
Sure.
So she ended up at Memphis's house.
Oh.
And I didn't,
Oh, wow.
Memphis called and she said, "Are you missing a child?" So I had to count noses. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
gosh.
I'm missing one.
Okay.
Is one bothering you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, wow.
By the time I went to collect her, Memphis, the wonderful teacher that she always is,
Hmm.
she had my daughter sitting on the floor
Okay.
on this blue piece of fabric,
Mhm.
and she was putting all these little colorful objects. Memphis loved color.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
All these little colorful objects all around. And that eventually
Oh,
became a paint
Yeah.
wall piece
Right.
that went to, there were 2 of them. 2
okay.
that went to the new, in Tallahassee. When
Okay.
they had the opening
It-
of the
it's-
new check.
It's one of those pieces with the mirror in the middle?
Yeah.
No kidding. Should we wait until, are you already recording or?
Oh,
Okay.
Well, when Vina comes, she'll have plenty to say.
Well, I have until about 4, unfortunately, only, so.
that's okay.
Yeah, but I hope though that however much we can talk about today, that we can talk
But
again.
that was the beginning of the one with the mirror in it.
Yeah.
And so later, when it was no longer at the Tallahassee, she used to raise money for the museum.
Mm.
She used to sell off pieces.
For the Jacksonville Art Museum?
Right.
Uh-huh.
And so she made a call and said, "Would you like to come over and see some of the pages?" It's time for her to get her membership up, where she had to make a donation,
Mhm.
which meant she had to sell some of her paintings.
Okay.
And I did that every year.
Oh,
I bought something.
wow.
So, but that, I had to have that because I remembered my daughter.
So you met Memphis Wood
Oh,
in the process of your daughter contributing to this artwork.
creating.
That's incredible. What do you know what year that was?
Oh, well, okay. It was when Holly was born in '66,
Okay.
so it was probably 1967. But Memphis followed me along. She was a wonderful neighbor.
Hmm.
When I moved across the street, she helped me redecorate my house.
Hmm.
My husband was in the trailer, mobile home business,
Mhm.
and most of my furniture was mobile home
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Memphis came over, and she helped me rearrange pictures, and she was a wonderful, always a teacher, you know,
Hmm.
always teaching.
Interesting. Yeah.
And she continued to stop by and bring me art magazines.
Uh-huh.
And she would say, "Rosemary, there is a lot more to life than
Yeah.
babies and bottles and diapers."
Oh, she said that, huh? Yeah.
That's that was her philosophy.
Uh-huh.
And she was going to work her way in me to join the art museum and then do something for the art museum, which I finally did. I
Wow.
was a member of the Ladies Guild for a long time, very
Yeah.
active. But Memphis pushed me
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
learn.
Mm-hmm.
I had very little art background,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
so Memphis loves color,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
Absolutely.
color.
Right,
And she just
right.
kept telling me, color is so important in our lives.
Mhm.
Art in general is important in our lives.
Mhm.
But I remember one day sitting up, we traveled together, with the art museum.
Oh, really?
Back in those days, the women of the art museum planned and put on trips to Europe and to New York. And
I knew
other
she
places.
traveled a good bit. So you would go on trips through the Jacksonville Art Museum, through the
Well,
Women's Guild, or?
If you wanted to go on a trip with the women of the museum, you had to join the museum, and then a portion of your money that you were paying for that trip went to the art museum. So we felt that we were doing a very good job for the museum.
Yeah.
Planning those trips and filling them with new members of the museum. And when we went, we also often took a member of the Jacksonville Art Museum, either Bruce or John, who were then in charge.
Right.
And then we would have entry to other artists' homes, different ones.
On your travels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And it made it really nice. And it was a very good time of my life, getting a lot of travel all over Europe, and saw most of the big museums. And we went out west, we went to California, we had quite a few big ones. That was a wonderful project for the women to do for the art museum, which we don't do anymore.
Do you remember, so that first day, what was your daughter's name who wandered over to Memphis?
That was Kim.
That was Kim?
She now goes as Ray, and she lives in Hawaii because she
Okay, yeah. Do you remember what your first impressions of Memphis were then? Had you seen her before?
Oh yeah, I had met Memphis.
You had met her before?
I had met her, and I knew Charlie already. Too.
Yeah, okay.
I got to the museum, to the Mandarin, what does they call that? The center, the community center.
Oh yeah, okay.
I had gone there.
Yeah.
And Mandarin, when you first moved there, is pretty stuffy. They always said, what side of the road do you live?
I see.
Meaning, are you on the river?
Right.
Or are you peons who live on the other side?
And when did you first move to Mandarin?
In 60.
In 60, okay.
Well, when was Holly born? Not 60, 62. 246, yeah, 62.
Okay. So what were your first impressions of
Memphis?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew about her.
Yeah.
I knew she'd been a teacher of all aspects. And she had actually worked over in Riverside at one of the places, and my children had little art lessons from her. And I thought she was just a wonderful teacher, but she was still a hippie.
Yeah, right.
She reminded me of a grown-up hippie. She loved art, and it came out, and everything she wore was expressing herself.
Yeah,
Her art came out the way she wore her hair, a cute little bun with little things sticking in it.
Yeah, and she was totally authentic. She had, this was always, from my understanding of her, an expression of herself. So she was a hippie before the hippies, I guess. Is that right?
Except I had heard that she earned her first paint box by walking 5 miles to the store after she had picked enough cotton to have some money saved up. She picked cotton on the farm and wanted to paint. But she had to buy her own supplies. And it was a 5-mile walk.
Interesting. This is when she first took art lessons as a kid?
She never talked about her art lessons.
Yeah.
To me, I don't know anything about her art lessons, just she wanted to paint.
Yeah.
And I don't know what kind of art lesson, maybe Vina knows more about her. But I know when she first came to Jacksonville, she lived over at the Y over in the Riverside.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And she was teaching at old high school,
Right.
601 Ocean. So she had to live somewhere close to 605 Ocean.
Oh, I
Was the
thought
high
that she
school.
came here to teach at Landon.
Is what?
I thought that she came to Jacksonville to teach at Landon.
Was it Landon? Well, she was teaching at a high school.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I thought but she lived downtown at the Y
mm-hmm,
for a while.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know, she probably found out, and she was teaching at Landon, and she had to get accommodation closer to school.
Mhm. So that day when Kim wandered over to her house, you had never been inside her house before.
No,
Yeah,
never been
but-
in her house.
Yeah, yeah. What was that like walking in and I don't know, what was the experience?
Well, I was fixated on the floor because
Yeah.
that's where all this art stuff was
Yeah.
laid out on the
Yeah,
floor.
yeah.
And yes, I've been, after that, we did dinner several times here. And it's very, very rustic. The house was very rustic.
Mhm,
And she didn't have anything excess.
mhm.
Everything was utilitarian or very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And those things weren't separate from each other, right? I
No,
mean, she thought
everything was around.
Mhm,
And she had traded with a number of friends,
Mhm.
especially with Charlie.
yeah,
She had things with Charlie.
yeah,
And so, and he was another wonderful
yeah.
part of Mandarin.
Right. Right.
And I was very lucky there. I'd gone to the club and did I know Memphis? I knew somebody there. But the key to being in Mandarin,
Mm,
accepted,
mm.
is that you could pass Charlie's sisters.
If you could pass Charlie's sisters, what does that mean?
Well, Charlie was very protected by his sisters. And when one of them met me at the community center
mhm.
and invited me to tea, I did the
Oh, really?
big social faux pas of bringing my children with me.
Ah.
Not the 4-year-old,
Uh-huh.
because she was at kindergarten,
Uh-huh.
but I brought the 2-year-old
Interesting.
and the infant in the carry case.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I could see the look of horror
Ah.
when I came to the door.
Hmm.
They were not used to children.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Fanny.
How many sisters did he have?
And so
Do you know?
I parked my son in
Yeah.
the staircase, and he was good as gold. He never
Yeah.
moved a bit.
Wow.
The only thing that was broken during that tea time was one of the ladies broke a cup.
Uh-huh.
But it was not because
Right.
of my children.
Right.
But okay, so I passed the code.
Really? No kidding. How many, these are all older sisters, I assume, if they're protective of them?
Well, at that time, there were 3 of them living there.
Ah,
But
huh.
little by little, it's,
And where was that? Was that at the club or where
His
was
house.
It was at his house?
his house is still in existence.
And 3 of his sisters were living there too? Interesting.
They were taking care of him.
Okay, okay.
And Charlie was great, again, teacher.
Uh-huh.
I ran several Brownie troop, Girl Scout troop, senior troop, and Charlie would invite the girls
Yeah.
to see him.
Hello. Come on in. Hi.
Hello.
Hey, I'm Tim Gilmore. I came to your talk a few other times today
absolutely,
because I know
absolutely.
that
But
you
since
have
you only
so
have the
much.
floor, let's get with Vina.
Okay, okay.
Did you have her sisters' names?
I know, and we were just at the point, it's just Fanny.
All right.
Fanny was the one I used to deal with. But who were the other sisters?
All right. All right. She had one brother,
Mm-hmm,
all right, Alfred.
mm-hmm.
And he probably was a junior, but I have to find out about that.
I spoke with her niece Amy a few times,
Okay.
and so she has told me a little bit. Of course, she's a good bit younger, but she's told me a little bit about the family.
Okay,
you know.
did she tell you? All right, I know that one of her sisters' name was Smodell.
Yes, right.
Okay, but I couldn't remember offhand what the other, they all had, most of them
Distinctive
had
names.
very
yeah.
interesting with Memphis and
Right.
Smodell, and then
Yeah.
there was one like India, but I'm not, it's
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I want to know about your personal, connections with Memphis.
All right.
So we were talking about when Kim went for a walk and ended up at Memphis's house, and this is the first time that Rosemary went inside Memphis's house, and and she's working. Actually, she incorporated what Kim was doing into an artwork. That's a pretty
She built her house.
incredible.
Do you know that?
What does that mean exactly?
That means she climbed up on a ladder and she took wood and she took a hammer and
She
nails.
literally
and
built
she
it.
literally worked
Really?
on building that house. I think Bob Brower designed it for her.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, Bob
actually.
Brower designed it. They were good friends.
Yeah.
And he designed
He
it,
did.
and
Uh-huh.
I guess she had people do the plumbing or the electricity or something. But I know that she was quite a human being.
Yeah.
She was physical
Yeah,
with
Yeah.
her art.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she has to be.
Oh man, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell me about how you first met Memphis?
I don't know. I've known her like forever.
Forever. Yeah. There was no first.
Well, all
Just
right,
always
to
knew
begin
her.
with, I got married about 66 or 7 years ago. In Memphis, when my husband was in high school, was her high school art teacher.
Oh.
Actually, I knew about her because my high school, I went to Lee.
Uh-huh.
She taught at Landon.
Right.
We didn't have an art teacher, but I had a lot of friends who went to Landon,
Mhm.
and that's probably when I met her.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we both belonged to Florida Craftsmen,
Right.
and so we used to do a lot of things for Florida Craftsmen together.
Right.
And then a lot of times, Florida Craftsmen would have a conference somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd usually drive the two of us there, and a lot of
Okay.
times we would even get one room and spend the night,
Yeah,
or 2 or 3
yeah.
nights, whatever it was. And easiest person to get along with.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I've talked to a few people who knew her a little bit, but not really well. Both of you knew her well, and I've watched that. Have you seen that Calliope video from, I think it's 1981 or something like that, where one of the founders of Calliope is at her house and is interviewing her. So I feel like I listened to how soft spoken she is in this video, but what was her personality like? I'm really curious
Just
about
always a teacher,
that.
always,
Yeah.
always interested in something,
Yeah.
interested in something.
Uh-huh.
She was very soft-spoken,
Mm-hmm.
but you saw her coming from a mile away because she dressed in the most,
Effusive.
she was
Effusive?
like a hippie before there were hippies.
That's exactly what Rosemary was saying.
Even the way she
Yeah.
wore her hair.
And she always had
Yeah.
chopsticks or
Yeah.
something fascinating in her hair,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
beads and bright colors, and she always wore socks, and the socks were always some wonderful socks that you couldn't imagine where she even got them. And
So she's effusive in her style, but she's soft spoken. It seems like there would have been, I don't know, does she have a real sense of presence about it? Was she one of those people that when she walked in the room, you knew she walked into the room?
Yeah.
either that or she liked herself, and she loved color, and she wanted it to be with her, on herself, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely knew when Memphis walked in the room because everybody turned around. Oh, this Memphis.
Yeah. Wow.
I had-
Everybody loved her.
Yes.
When we did a retirement party for her, what we have, 600 people showed up,
Oh,
700 people, former students.
Right. It's interesting. There's one person that I know who took one of Memphis's classes at JU,
Uh-huh.
who, it's everybody that I've heard talk about Memphis as a teacher, talked about what a wonderful teacher she was, and I've wondered, okay, is that just what you say to be courteous because it was a long time ago? And this one person that I know who is an artist, said that Memphis came up to the painting she was working on and put her hands on it and totally redid it, and it made this individual mad. And that is the only kind of thing like that I've ever heard. All I've heard, is, oh, she was just wonderful. And is anybody wonderful all the time?
I have a good story to tell you.
Yeah? Oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I was at JU,
Okay.
and I was doing a project. I was working in fiber,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a backstrap loom, and I had made this piece, and it had green, and it had orange and gold, and those are not normally my colors that I work with.
Okay.
And I couldn't put it together. I just couldn't make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Memphis and I said, what should I do with this? And she said, get a great big pot at home, put it on your stove, get the water boiling, get a whole package of tea, dump it in there, let it really seep, take your whole piece, and dip it in the tea.
Really?
Yeah, and what it did was it made all of it tea dipped so that all the colors had tea and color in them, and so it worked. I'm looking at this one, which reminds me of like it could have been tea dipped, because you wouldn't think about using red and that shade of gold with that shade of turquoise with those muted more colors.
The
like
old
that.
days of tie-dye.
Wait, was that something that she did herself
I
then?
don't think so, but
You don't think so,
I
but
don't
that's what
know,
she told you.
That's what she told me. All right.
That's really interesting.
All right, when Memphis died, I went to her
Yeah.
funeral, and it was in one of the churches here in Mandarin, and I don't remember which one.
Presbyterian.
All right,
Oh,
So
because
I-
she had moved to Atlanta, but her funeral was here?
yeah, they had a memorial.
They had a
A
memorial
memorial,
service.
okay. Uh-huh.
All right, and I walked in the room and I sat down, and someone told me that Memphis had decorated it.
Well,
And-
her sculpture was there. The cross is her own sculpture,
Right.
that she did.
Yeah.
But the floor was a turquoise color, and there was a lot of brown on the altar and in the back and around it and everything. And as they were talking about her in this memorial, the sun was sort of going down, and in the stained glass windows at the top, bled through, she had tea dipped the whole room with the color of the stained glass.
Oh.
It was just like, okay.
And where was this?
The church, it was a Presbyterian church.
Uh-huh.
Right here on Mandarin Road.
Yeah, on Mandarin Road.
Oh, is it the Mandarin Presbyterian Church that's right down the road?
Yeah.
Oh.
And the sculpture's still there, the
Oh,
cross.
it is.
And I'm sure the stained glass windows that she designed are still up and around.
Okay, I have to get myself in
Yeah.
there then.
Yeah.
Actually, Westminster, where I live.
Oh, you live in
has a
Westminster?
sculpture by the medical building.
So now I knew that Bob Broward, what was
Designed.
Westminster originally called?
Wesley Manor.
That's right. I knew he had designed it,
And
and that.
she saw that other artists participated. I think there's 10 different pieces of sculpture by other Mandarin artists, friends of yours. And there's 2 wonderful Charlie Brown pots being kept in seclusion somewhere under lock and key. I've never seen them.
Really? But her work is still there and
Her
still
work
visible?
is up.
Because
And
I've.
the elements and needs cleaning something.
Yeah, okay. Because I've heard that, that some of Broward's original design there has been.
Well, it's a shame
Altered or
that
demolished
so
or-
many of his buildings are being torn down, but they're over 50 years old
Yeah.
and
yeah,
they need
yeah.
to be torn down. But
Mm. Well.
he was a wonderful designer.
I have another interesting story.
Yes, please.
Well, this is just a little light story.
Sure.
She and Charlie were really good friends
Yeah.
too, because they just lived down the street from each other.
Yeah.
And one day she said, I need to have y'all for lunch. And I have another friend, Allison Watson.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And she also was part of our group in Florida Craftsman and all that. So Memphis was going to have Charlie and Allison and I for lunch. And it was in the summertime, I think it was. And so we got to her house, Now, I don't know if you ever saw the inside of her house.
I haven't.
Oh, aren't you?
Only in pictures in that video, so, yeah.
Did they show in her kitchen where she had a giant picture of
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Mr. Rogers?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
No.
great big huge
Really?
picture of Mr. Rogers.
Do you know why? What her?
She just thought he was really special
Okay.
in the way
Yeah,
he
yeah,
talked to kids,
Sure.
and, and
Okay.
whatever.
yeah. Okay.
And so we came in and she brought a beer for Charlie. You want to know what her personality was?
Yeah.
And tomato juice for Allison and I, because
Okay.
ladies
Don't drink
don't
beer.
and they don't drink for lunch. Okay. All right. And so we all talked about all kinds of stuff. And then she said, well, now I must go get the lunch. And
Okay.
she goes out of the house and to her car, and she opens the trunk, and she's got pizza in there.
Okay.
I thought I'd keep it warmer in the summertime in
The car.
in my car, which was out in the sun,
Yeah.
in the back.
Probably worked.
Yeah, and so she brought in the pizza, and we all had pizza for lunch.
Yeah.
But I'll
Yeah.
tell you some really incredible stories about her.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
one time we were driving to one of the Florida Craftsman things,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, Vina, I just don't understand people.
Mm.
She said, I went to Sunday school, and our preacher, or I don't know if they call him preachers, a minister,
What,
whatever.
was it the Unitarian Church?
Episcopal,
Pastor,
yeah, pastor, anyway.
Okay.
Said, all right, I want everybody in this class to write about sin,
Hmm.
and then pass the papers in and everything. She
Okay.
said, well, I wrote about sin, and he came to me and he said, wow, Memphis, you don't know anything about sin. And she said, yes, I do. She said, Vina, he didn't understand. He said, I wrote about polluting our air
Mm.
and polluting our waters
Mm.
and killing our fish in the ocean
Mm.
and making our land so full of DDT at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
That we can't grow healthy crops for the next generation.
Yeah, yeah.
And he
yeah.
didn't think that was sin at all. And I thought that was the worst of all sin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And she just went on and on about. So that's what she's
Yeah.
all about.
Yeah, it's great.
Thinking about humanity and
Right.
other things besides just art.
Mm.
She was,
I'm surprised that her. So she went to an Episcopal church. Is that right?
I guess she did for a Bible class. This must have been a Bible class.
I really do.
Yeah.
And she could probably walk from where she lived to it. So yeah,
Oh,
it might
really?
have been
Yeah.
a Wednesday night Bible
Mm.
class or something like that.
Wow. So when you think about her art, from what I understand, just from the research that I've done, I mean, she had she created for decades, right? And so earlier work, there's a lot of kind of realism, and then it gets more abstract, and then it almost seems to me like around the time she retired, she must have had some kind of new sense of freedom to do what she wanted to do.
She
in
did
her
that,
art.
and I should have taken a picture of it to bring to you
Okay.
or something. I have the most beautiful, I think, the
Yeah.
most beautiful painting she ever painted.
Really?
I think so.
And this is a painting.
Before she took a class somewhere in fiber.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I once gave a little talk about her. Let's see
Oh,
what I
wow.
wrote about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know whether I have the date on it though. When she was telling me about polluting, that was
Yeah.
in the 1960s.
Okay.
Way ahead of her time.
Right.
Way
Right.
ahead of her time.
Right.
Somewhere in one of the workshops, she took a class in fiber, and it was love at first touch.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, she
Yeah.
did mostly fiber sculpture.
Yeah,
But that was
yeah.
a little bit later on. I mean,
Right.
she was mostly known when I first came about
Yeah.
in my youth and younger days as a painter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
She was not afraid to try any medium. I have some woodblock prints. They were not very good.
Hmm.
And she said they're not very good.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And Charlie did them
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
They decided together to try this.
We all did. There was about 4 or 5 of us,
Yeah.
and we all tried them just to see what would
Yeah,
happen.
so
Wow.
she was just always
Sure.
wanting to experiment
Yeah.
and try something different.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I have a big ceramic piece of hers.
Mhm.
I even
Do
have,
you?
yeah, and I even have it's fallen apart because it's been in my yard forever.
Ah.
A little welded metal
Yeah.
sculpture thing.
Right?
And she really did do everything.
Yeah.
Collage, I mean,
Yeah.
all kinds
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
things.
You know, I think of, so I have to say my absolute favorite of any Memphis wood piece that I've seen is the tapestry that's in the Unitarian
Oh,
Church.
yeah, that's beautiful.
Just, do you know what I'm talking about? It's the Unitarian Church on Arlington Expressway. I think it's 22 feet tall.
Mhm.
And it looks like you're standing in front of just a mystic vision. It's so incredible.
Yeah.
It's one of the most incredible things I've ever
Right.
seen.
And it's
you know?
old. She did that a long time ago.
Yeah. And I feel like what she was doing in, by the 70s, a lot of it was really kind of radical in a way, wasn't it? Did you guys see it?
Yeah,
that way?
because she went from stuff like this
Mhm.
to the open stuff to
Mhm.
doing it around big cardboard tubes.
Like a totems, as
Yeah,
she called
yeah,
them? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it was always willing to go another step, and this
Right.
sounds like it could go here, there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very curious. Did she was single all her life. Did she ever have any relationships that you knew about? Or she was just not interested?
Art was filled her.
Yeah.
And
Art
school.
filled her.
Yeah.
Sure,
When
yeah.
you think she lived in Mandarin and she taught at Landon,
Mhm.
which that's a pretty far away to
Mm.
go every single day, at the time when State Road
Mhm.
13
Yeah.
was 2-lane,
Right.
Brick.
yeah, before it ever, yeah.
Brick. Yeah.
Part of it, part
Yeah,
of it, and part of
yeah.
it gravel.
Yeah.
Did you know Mary Graff?
Yeah.
She taught at Lee, and she came from,
I got her books. Yeah. You had to have a Mary Graff book, fourth grade art, history.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was my teacher at Lee.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So no kind of romantic interests in anybody ever?
Well, everybody thought she had a thing with Charlie, but they were just friends.
They were
Yeah.
just friends.
Friends.
Yeah. Right.
And
right.
like I said, he was well protected.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's a really interesting.
The only sister I knew was Fanny,
Uh-huh.
but there were several of them.
There
that I had met.
were, let's see, the oldest was Harriet,
Okay.
and then Elizabeth, or maybe Swat, and then there was Dinda, whose real name was Adeline, and then there was,
Her name was Adeline, but she went by Dinga. Do you know what?
probably one of the little kids. You know how they do, they can't
Yeah.
say
Can't
Adeline.
Okay.
Adeline, and they
All
just
right.
called her the Dinda.
Wow. Because Adeline's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
Dinga, I don't know. You know?
And they each had a special job.
Yeah.
And then there was Fanny, and then there was Mary,
Wow.
and then there was Charlie.
And was he the youngest?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
yeah.
And
Huh.
he was an accountant for so many years with A&P?
No,
Where was it?
It was a fruit and vegetable company down on Beaver Street. That was, let's see what
And
it
he
was.
was in the back room with accounting,
Mm.
numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So the clay was a release
Mm.
Uh-huh.
to him,
Right.
finding his clay. As
Sure.
what was that term
Yeah.
you said about finding the right medium?
Mhm.
There was something, just,
You have to feel it, and you just,
the clay was his release.
Mhm.
yeah,
It really helped him all the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he tried other things,
Mm-hmm.
but the clay was his thing.
Yeah.
Harriet married and she had a daughter, so they all had one niece. Elizabeth married also,
Okay.
and then all the rest of them lived in the house that their dad squatted. It was an unfinished house that no taxes had been paid on for years and years, but we're talking about probably early 20s, maybe 1920s.
I don't know.
All right, Mandarin used to be a big port,
Right.
and Charlie's dad was a stevedore.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so he got this house and they all just moved in it. And they fixed it up, and I guess then he started paying taxes on it. And so it was their house.
No kidding.
I don't know who it belonged to
That's fascinating.
before then.
Wow.
But it's been sold and resold several times.
Yeah.
All right, now Fanny worked in town. Vina worked in the kitchen. She did all the cooking for everybody for every meal, including making bread. She had the best bread recipe in the world. It was the only thing not in her file, and I went through her files to get her recipes. Charlie said I could. Let's see. Mary worked in the house. She was the one who vacuumed and dusted and changed the linens and did the wash. And Eleanor worked outside. She did the lawnmower and the yard.
You had to deal with Eleanor.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, that was the other one.
Yeah.
I passed Eleanor.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. So, I don't know what was the age difference, do you know, between Memphis and Charlie? Were they close to the same age, or?
I don't know, but she's not buried here.
I'm wondering.
But he was the youngest.
Now he's
Right.
buried right up here in the.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is, so you said that sometimes people assumed that there was.
Charlie liked to be the man. When we would go on these conferences, Charlie would buy the wine for a table of women.
So I'm wondering if Memphis was kind of like another sister to him.
Maybe,
Yeah.
probably, because sometimes she would come down and criticize his pops.
Oh.
And he'd be working on something, and she'd call him and say, "Charlie, I'm coming down to see what you're doing." And he'd say,
Yeah.
he'd hang the phone up and he'd say, "Oh no, she's going to come down and criticize."
Oh, really?
But he probably did the same to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were good friends.
So, Rosemary, you gave this one to this museum, didn't you? No? Oh. Oh, okay.
I donated several,
But not that one. Oh,
not
okay.
these good ones.
Do you guys know about this one? Oh, interesting. Okay.
It looks like an airport.
Yeah, it's apparently, I have the information about it over there. It's called Birds at Rest or something like that. So
That's interesting.
yeah, and I thought we were looking through some of her, the different pieces that they have in the back hall there, and that one's quite different from most of the other ones,
So
I brought the moon rock.
Moon rock?
Moon rocks.
Uh-huh.
She had one of her students
Yeah.
was an astronaut and brought back to Jacksonville moon
Really?
rocks, and she had them in her backyard for a while.
Oh, really? Wait,
And-
the thing you did with your hands, did she have them piled on each other? Like, oh, wow.
And so she painted it.
Oh, yeah?
Didn't paint the rock, but she painted a
Oh, I see.
picture of the rock,
Oh,
and
oh,
I like
oh.
the picture, and
Oh,
that was one of those I bought.
okay. I think I may have seen that earlier, but did not realize that that's what the influence was.
And
behind
it was a student of hers that brought the moon rock.
Wow.
Maybe you remember something about that moon rock.
I don't remember who
Anyway.
it was.
But we had it out of the beach for a long time because it was kind of beachy.
Yeah. That's
And
fascinating.
Another piece that I had out of the beach was soft, she called it soft sounds or something, but it was very much beach colors.
Uh-huh.
It looked like sand.
Uh-huh.
So she did all kinds of things.
I want to ask you also, there's so many things I want to ask you, one of the things that I'm really interested in doing, and Dr. Hoyer, when she gave her lecture on Memphis Wood, kind of contextualized her in the art movements of the time in some really interesting ways. In the interviews and things I've seen, or the one Calliope video that I mentioned to you, she doesn't seem interested in talking about art movements or anything like that. Everything she talks about is color. But I know that and you said she gave you art magazines.
Yeah, she was trying to educate me.
I know that she knew, right, the different, she knew about abstract expressionism, and I'm sure she knew about Jackson Pollock, and I think I can see some of the things she was doing in the 70s as being related to Georgia O'Keeffe a long time before, and then Judy Chicago in the 70s even. Do you know what she thought about, what artists outside of the area she admired, or what she thought about different trends in art or anything like that?
The 60s and the 70s were probably, I think personally, the most incredible three-dimensional art movement of any other time.
Sure.
And the potters, the jewelers, the weavers, the silversmiths, the glass blowers. I mean, even before Chihuly, that whole group. And she was, I'm sure she knew everybody, just like I did. I mean, I had a good experience in that I was chairman of American Craft Council for the Southeast.
Right.
So I got to meet a lot of them just from having them do speeches and workshops for me, but whatever. But she knew all about them. So probably if you asked her who her favorite artist, I wouldn't be surprised if she would pick like two, and one would be from that era, and one might be Michelangelo. I mean, you just never know. You just never know.
One thing you were saying about fads, we were at an exhibit in New York, and it was a huge exhibit, white on white. This was a fad there for a while, white on white. And I was kind of a little bit bored, and I'd sat down, and she came and sat with me. And she said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I don't understand it. I really don't understand the white on white. It's not telling me anything." She says, "Don't worry, I don't understand it either." She said, "Give me some color."
Yeah, but those white on whites, they painted all white, and then they'd have one dot that would be a different shade of white. It was really pretty awful. I don't know how they got away with some of that.
But she was always teaching, and when she was up in Atlanta, or where was she?
Suburb of Atlanta somewhere, right?
Anyway, she was retired, and my daughter was going to school up there, and so we decided we wanted to visit. So we went to the nursing home where she was, and they said, "Well, you can't miss her room." I didn't have a number on it. Don't worry about the number, but you'll see it, and you'll know. So when we went up there, sure enough, Memphis had a little table there with a painting and a jar of flowers, very artistic. And she was still giving lectures. I don't know how old she was at that point, but she definitely was still an artist, an art teacher. That was her drive.
I did ask her how she decided to go to art school, because she was pretty up. I think she was like in her late teens before she had ever even seen a painting.
I read that,
and I asked her, and she said, "I decided I wanted to go to college, and so came and asked my dad, and he said, "Good for you. Okay, goodbye." You know.
But didn't
Lots
give
of
her any
love.
money.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah.
So she said she put on her hat and she got her suitcase and she walked down the road, waited for the Greyhound bus,
Oh, yeah.
and went to Athens to start with. Yeah. And got a job as a waitress in the cafeteria, I think, to earn her money for her tuition. And I think she did that. I don't think she got into school immediately. I think she had to work a little bit first and then
Wow.
worked her way through college. And
Fiercely independent always,
yes,
right?
yeah.
I'm curious, so since so much of her, really, to my mind at least, radical kind of later works, emerges in the
I
late.
thought I had a picture of that painting, but
Oh, really?
But yeah,
Okay.
I'll do one and give me your cell phone
Absolutely.
number and I'll
Yeah.
send it to you.
Okay. The late 60s and the 1970s, this is also, of course, a time period of, lots of women's rights stuff. And, I was looking back through some old newspaper articles, and there was a show at Gallery Contemporanean, and it was to me it was strange how the article was framed. It was framed as saying these are all women artists who are doing, that word stitchery, right? A lot of it was stitchery. And then he said something, and it was a he who wrote it, about women's lib, phrase of the time. And he said, but you can't tell how any of these artists feel about women's lib. And I thought it was a really strange kind of, and it was 1970s. But it does make me, I was already wondering, how did she relate to, new freedoms for women and women's rights?
We've always had freedom, because the advantage of having your work shown and people looking at it, not knowing whether it was a man, a woman, black or white.
Okay.
It's a real freedom. It's a real freedom. And if everybody likes your work, then you feel, wow. And I guess there were probably times when people saw Memphis's things and then met her and thought, this little old lady did that?
Right.
A woman, I juried a show once, and that happened to me. The paintings were large, really large, and they were, actually they weren't paintings, they looked like paintings. They were done with colored pencils that were so thick and so tight that they looked like they were painting. And
Wow.
I was one of 3 judges, and we looked at the paintings and everything at the whole festival, and picked that one as best. That artist is best in show. And the artist's name was Gene, Gene, and I forgot the last name right now. But we all assumed it was a man. All right. And this 80-something-year-old woman walks up to collect her trophy for best in show.
Yeah.
And I was with another artist from Jacksonville who was totally freaking out. And her name was like Genevieve or something, so she just always all right, Gene. And she said, I said, well, obviously you've had artistic training. And she said, yes. She said, I went to school. It was called, I don't know what it was called. Oh, eventually they named it Parsons. And then she just went on from there. And we were wiped out because the last thing that you expected was this
A little lady.
well in her 80s at the time, in her 80s.
Little old lady.
Yeah, and the thing that's so incredible about it is when you are an artist, and you're not standing there holding your work so people know who you are.
Yeah.
They don't. They might know your name,
Yeah.
and some artists, especially women, might even sign it like
Yeah.
J.C. Smith or something like that.
Right.
So you don't know if it's a man or a woman or what.
Okay.
And so you have that freedom. You have that freedom
Yeah.
from the very beginning.
So I'm a little bit past time that
Oh,
I have
okay,
to, no,
okay.
but I want to ask a final question for
Okay.
today, and again, I'm hoping I can speak with both of you much more, because
Okay,
we're
okay.
just scratching the
Okay,
surface, I feel
okay.
like right now. But, you know, when you hear the name Memphis Wood, and of course you knew her, so the way when you hear her name, there's all these other dimensions that come to mind. But you know, she worked for so long. She had a long career. How would you characterize, if somebody said, I don't know, somebody asked you to characterize her work? Is that even possible, or where would you start? Do you think more of, you know, abstract things that she did and textile pieces, or do you see it as a continuum?
For me, it's color.
Color, yeah.
It's whatever she did, it was a color.
Color.
Always that.
Whether it was-
Anything, I mean,
Well, let's
this
look
is
at the
totally
color in there
different.
and
Sure.
the
This,
color in
but
there.
it's
Yeah.
color,
Yeah.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the clay piece I have is not color, but you know, anything that can have color, she would do it.
It's interesting. There's a couple of pieces that she did that really have no color that surprised me. You know, one was something I've read about it and I've seen pictures of it. I have no idea where it is. It was called Shaman. Do you remember this? It was really dark and had no kind of color in it. And I was like, wow, that's really strange. I mean, someone who is so focused on color, I would love to be able to ask her,
Why
well,
dark?
what's happening with you when you
What was
create
inside
something
of
that's
you?
no color? Yeah. But color is the main thing.
Yeah, for me, for me personally, it would be
Well,
Memphis
Moon
color.
Rocks didn't have a lot of color.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's whites, the sound, soft sounds
Mm-hmm.
had some color, but not vibrant, not vibrant. She was vibrant,
She was vibrant. Yeah.
and she had to express it.
Yeah.
I wonder, I have never thought of this before, but I wonder how many artists start young. I mean, like I was 4 years old the first time I did clay,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I just wonder how other artists, I never really, that's a good question. That's a good question, over the multiple years
Yeah.
that you do something and because you love it, you know, and it's never work
Mm.
unless they're being pushed by somebody for a deadline,
Right.
then it becomes work.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much, and I hope we can
Well, good
exchange
luck
phone
with your
numbers or
book.
something. Yeah. Well, there's so much more I want to ask you. You know, so I hope
And I'm
that,
gonna ask my friends, different friends,
Okay.
art friends, that
that'd be great.
what they think about, what they thought about
Okay.
this.
Okay.
All right, I was trying to find a pen.
Yeah. Well, I have one.
Okay,
you have one
I
too?
just wanted to write
Sure.
your
Yeah.
cell phone number so
Okay.
I could take a picture of my painting and send it to you.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
It was really funny when Brittany asked me if I would put it in her show, in the Memphis show.
Oh.
My daughter said, no, it's not leaving the wall.
Oh.
You didn't want her, she didn't want to have an empty space in your house.
I think she just thought if something happened to it, she would just cry.
Oh.
Both of my girls, both of my daughters.
Well, when we did that show way back, I was in horror when time to time you would be sitting at the table doing paperwork, and Charlie and Memphis would be holding the ladder, and Charlie, however 80 years old,
Right,
would be up there pinning things on the wall, and Memphis would be holding the ladder.
Oh, gosh.
Two then already elderly people.
Yeah.
And they worked with that show, that first Mandarin art show.
Wow. Would I be able to get your, well, I guess once you text me, I'll have your number.
Well, yeah, I'll give it to you now.
Yeah.
Vina, V-I-N-A,
Mm-hmm.
Schemer,
Right.
S-C-H-E-M-E-R, and it's 904
Mm-hmm.
705 3115,
Okay.
I think. I never, let me just double check, I never call myself. so
Right.
I never know.
Well, nobody knows phone numbers anymore because they're all on our phones.
You know what the worst part is? There's no way to find an address hardly of somebody.
Yeah, right.
You can find their phone numbers and everything else. All right, let's see here.
Would you mind if I got in touch with you to ask you some more questions?
Sure.
Okay.
You want my phone?
If you would mind.
904
Yeah. Okay.
655
Okay.
6816.
6816. Okay.
And if I don't answer, it may be because I don't answer
Yeah.
phone numbers that I don't know.
Totally. Who
But
does that anymore?
When people leave a message, then
Yeah.
if I don't answer, they leave a message,
Right.
I'll call them back.
I got it.
That's the same deal I've got with my grandson.
Yeah.
He's a football player.
Right.
He just missed his plane, so he's not here
Ah.
visiting.
Okay.
And he gets so many calls,
Yeah,
and so
I'm sure.
you call him,
Yeah.
leave a message,
Yeah.
he'll call right back.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
thank you both so
Yeah,
much.
705-3115.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah. Thank you both so much
Sure.
for speaking
Well,
with
we
me. and I
enjoyed,
look
I'm
forward
sure,
to chatting.
memories of Memphis.
Oh,
Yeah.
Memphis was such a warm person, just kind to my daughter Ray, kind to her, and instilled in her that color. She showed Kim that her work was appreciated. And today, Ray is a big collector.
Oh.
She has a big old house in Hawaii, and she's got the walls filled with all kinds of paintings
No kidding.
that she's collected.
Yeah.
And she's worked with the Hawaii Art Museum.
Okay.
And I say that
That's
a lot of it
that's
was
exciting.
because Memphis gave her that feeling
Right.
that her art was acceptable.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow.
Because Memphis had that way. She could
Yeah.
encourage you to know more about art.
Someone broke in her house one time and they stole her silver and her TV sets.
They stole her silver and her TV set?
And she had all these wonderful pieces of art
Yeah.
all over the place.
Yeah.
And this is always, thank goodness they just didn't bother any of them.
Right.
What if she said
That's
this?
the important stuff, you know? Yeah. A TV is a TV.